Hi, I'm Dani Gasparini, and welcome to this segment of Penn Voice. I am joined today by Emma Shlaes, who is the Director of Public Policy and Advocacy for the Silicon Valley Bicycle Coalition. Emma, welcome.
Thank you.
That's a full title.
Yes.
Very important, actually. So tell us a little bit about what you do as the Director of Policy and Advocacy, and tell us a little bit about the Silicon Valley Bicycle Coalition.
Yeah, definitely. So we've been a nonprofit organization in the area for the past, actually it's our 25th anniversary as an official nonprofit. And our mission is to create a healthy community, environment, and economy through bicycling for people who live, work, or play in San Mateo and Santa Clara counties. So we work across both counties, and we kind of have two ways of looking at our work, people and places. So I kind of focus on the places side, and that's bike lanes on the ground, places for people to bike trails, also just policies that relate to biking. And then the people aspect is once you have the infrastructure available, you want to get people out there using it and feeling comfortable and safe. So we do a lot of education for youth in schools, and we do adult education and events and other stuff to get people excited.
I would imagine if we turn back the clock and went and looked at the organization 25 years ago, what you are looking from a policy standpoint and advocacy standpoint is very different today than it was 25 years ago. I think it'd be hard pressed for anyone not to find people coming off of trains in great number with their bike in hand and biking to work, and or seeing large amounts of bike racks at large employers. So it's interesting to see the evolution of what you're dealing with today. So tell us a little bit about some of the policies and advocacy work that you're dealing with today in your role.
Yeah, well, that's interesting because our staff was looking at some of the things we were working on 25 years ago, and some things are similar. So around that time, we were just starting to work with Caltrain to get bikes to be able to be brought on board. Now there's 2 bike cars, and we're looking towards electrification.
Lockers, yeah.
Bike parking. So that's really grown a lot. And then some of the other things we're working on in the county are really just about making the cities safer for people biking. And that's kind of the number one reason people don't ride a bike is they don't feel safe. So how can we address that? And right now, a lot of the cities are working on updating their bike and pedestrian plans, which is kind of the first step towards getting better bike facilities in cities. And they work with the community, they survey, and they identify the streets, intersections that need improvements for people to feel safe enough to get out on their bikes.
And one of the things that I really wasn't even thinking about is that bicyclists use the vehicle code as their own method of transportation safety. So what a car has to recognize with regard to safety, stop signs, stop lights, so does a bike.
Yep.
So that bicyclists fall under the same kinds of safety codes that a car would, and then are under the same kind of violation, if you will, by local police jurisdictions.
Yep, that's true. And we always encourage people to follow the rules, the law. And I think there's, maybe a misperception that people biking are less law-abiding, but I think it may just be kind of that outlier effect where you're more likely to notice it, where there's actually cars breaking the rules all the time.
Right. I can talk about speeding tickets or parking violations all the time.
Yeah,
right?
For sure.
So,
and we also look a lot at collisions and what is causing collisions involving bicyclists to happen. And cities, when they're looking at this, especially in their bike and pedestrian plans, they can identify what was the cause, what was the time of day. They get a picture of the collision and then can try and mitigate that by changing the infrastructure. So it's often that it's not necessarily people breaking the law, whether biking or driving, but that there's fixes to the streets that can be made so people aren't as much in contact.
Right. We have unsafe conditions overall versus it's one or the other's fault, if you will.
Yes.
And one of the things that you do is obviously looking at those kinds of intersections for possible solutions. If I was an individual, I'm an avid biker, I typically use biking as a form of recreation, but now I'm thinking, gosh, I do want to look at biking as a form of transportation. How do I get involved with your organization to learn more about what are my routes, what are the safe routes, how do I get involved, how do I help you in your advocacy?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I would say first, just go to our website. There's tons of resources. We have links to all the cities, all the city staff people, places you can report a hazard on the road. We also have a local team in San Mateo County. So that's a group of our members who meet once a month. They have their own email list and just kind of compare notes and support each other in advocating in their city. So that's a great way to get involved. And then also just like stay tuned in your community. Like I said, San Mateo, Pacifica, San Carlos, Daly City, they're all updating their bike and pedestrian plans this year. And so each of those cities will have events, surveys, ways for residents to chime in. And then each city also has a bike and pedestrian advisory committee, kind of like a planning commission or, other type of commission. And sometimes they're called Complete Streets Committee. But if you're really interested, I would go to your city's website and find out more information. They usually meet once a month or every other month. And those are your people, if you're a bicyclist, and that's a really easy way to get involved.
So if you're someone who lives at the north end of the county but works in the south end of the county, how do I understand what my route might be, or how do I advocate to make sure that there is a safe route for me to get from north end to south end?
Well, a couple of things. We actually have a program on our website called Route Scouts, and anyone can enter their route that they're looking to go. And we have a team of volunteers who help us actually scout a route and who know the ins and outs of where it's safe to go. So that's an easy way. We also have like frequently requested routes up there if you just want to check that out. And then we're working among all the cities, but specifically on El Camino Real. The health system here did a report where they found there were more collisions involving people biking and walking on El Camino than any other road in the county. It's the only north-south route that goes from Daly City all the way, even down to San Jose. So we're trying to make that safer for people biking because we know people are already using it. And there's a lot of cities like Redwood City just included protected bike lanes in their El Camino plan. So we're looking forward to that.
Right. And I would imagine that from a regional standpoint, we hope that, again, Redwood City might be the pilot and the start, but then you have communities up and down, north and south of Redwood City, that would continue that so that there is this safe route up and down the county and is adopted up and down the county.
Exactly. We're hoping they kind of be the model to inspire and influence other cities around them.
Right. Now, we're not even going to get into the health implications that, of course, biking to and from work as well as recreationally is, because it's a great benefit. I don't think there's anybody that's going to argue that. But what are some of the successes the Silicon Valley Bicycle Coalition has realized so far?
Yeah, so the El Camino in Redwood City was a big success last year, in the end of last year. And they're looking to implement a pilot in the next couple years. We've also been working on the transportation ballot measure that's coming up on November 6th for San Mateo County. And we worked in a long process with SamTrans and other stakeholders to get a really strong measure. It's 65% for transit as well as biking and walking. And we were able to get a complete streets policy in there. And that just means that any project anywhere on the street has to consider how are people walking and biking incorporated into this project, which is huge because once you start thinking about it less as this is just for people driving, this is just for people biking and walking, it's all together. Everyone's using the street.
It's got to be an integrated program in order for all of it to be successful, whether it's trains or vehicles or if it's biking and walking. Thanks so much, Emma, for coming and telling us a little bit about what your policy and advocacy work is. Look forward to having you come and tell us about more successes, because I think this is something that our communities will be able to embrace in a larger and greater way as you begin your education campaigns about how awesome it is to take your bike to work.
Yeah, just check it out.
Well, thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see all of you next time on Penn Voice.